Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. So, hi, my name is Karthik, and I'm going to be the moderator for this event for you today. And it's Saturday afternoon. I hope you all had lunch and all genki for this event. So, before I start the event, just a curious question. How many of you work for a startup? Okay, just two. And okay, how many of you work for Rakuten actually? Okay, great. So thank you. So there's a good mix of people who are from outside, who are from Rakuten, and a couple of people from startup. Okay, so thanks for joining us, and it's my pleasure to be in this panel discussion with these awesome people and in your presence. Thank you so much. So let's start. So before I start, let me just give you a small context. So Rakuten, like every great leader, was a baby once upon a time. So Rakuten was also taking its baby steps like 21 years ago. So Rakuten was founded in 1997, if you know. So we started as an internet e-commerce company, and now we have like 75 plus services. We have offices in all across the world, businesses doing turnaround in trillions of yen. So though we used to be a startup once upon a time, we grew up really fast. We had all the good things which startup has, like innovation, agility, all those things. But as we grew, we also had the problems of big companies. So at heart, we want to have all the good things which startup has. So that's the whole reason why we love big open innovation in such a big way. We collaborate a lot with startups, and that's the context of this event that we want to present you what's happening in open innovation, and we have these experts from various industries with us today. So enough about this introduction. So I'll like to jump right into this topic, and let me introduce our panel today. So up first, I have Rupinder Singh, who is in charge of innovation from CEIO office. Can you please give me an introduction?
My name is Rupinder. I am a principal in the CEO's innovation office at Rakuten. I'm in an advisory role to Mickey on group level strategy and innovation. One of the initiatives that I ran was the Rakuten Accelerator, and Hoso is a part of that. I'll touch more about the Rakuten Accelerator later once we do the intros, but Hoso.
Me? Yeah, so Hoso is the CIO of a startup called Ant Global. So Hoso, please give us your introduction.
Sure. My name is Hoso, Chief Investment Officer of the Ant Global. And in regards to the Ant Global, some media call us Mongolian-born, Singapore-headquartered, global ambitious fintech. And what we are doing is that we are building a financial inclusion platform. And maybe it takes a few time. Is it okay?
Yeah, sure. Take your time.
Okay, sure. And yeah. As you may know, there are 1.7 billion people around the world still have no or limited access to basic financial services. And within a Southeast Asian area, the number becomes the 500 million people. And what we mean by the basic financial services are instant access to credit and micropayments and basic insurance. And every financial platform has to start with the trust. And we started with the micro-lending, which allows us to build this trust. And we call this service Lenderman. And Lenderman is, in a nutshell, it's an AI-powered mobile-based application that offers up to $800 instantaneously. It's really fast and personalized and non-conventional. And 18 months after the commercial launch, we have processed more than 500,000 microloans in total of $45 million. And actually, in our country, in Mongolia, we have no credit score system, and we take no collateral. And despite these disadvantages, our repayment rate on time is 98.5%, and which means that our default rate is 6 times less than a Mongolian commercial bank. And also, as I mentioned before, the credit is just one part of our platform. Our second service is payment. We have just launched our payment solution in Mongolia, and we believe that our business, payment business, will give us a valuable data that we can leverage and we can serve our customers with more financial services. And now we are taking this financial inclusion platform onto the larger markets, namely Philippines and Myanmar. In the Philippines, actually, we acquired a local bank, and this allows us to use its license agreements and existing borrowers to successfully launch our fintech solution. And in Myanmar, we are setting up a microfinancial institutions to reach out to villagers, farmers, and urban customers. So this is on the global, and thank you for having me here.
Great.
You can tell who's actively in a startup because he's always ready to pitch. That's a really good trait to have when you're in a startup. And I'm also happy to be here with this great panel as well. My name is Grant Trowbridge Clark. I'm the CEO of Rakuten Games. Rakuten Games is a joint venture between a Silicon Valley company, Game Closure, and Rakuten. And it's primarily, right now we're focused on HTML5 games. And this is also coming in the form of messengers. So on a personal level, I was happy to take part in this panel because I've throughout my career, I've sat on a few ends of the spectrum between big companies and startups. I originally worked at Nissan Motors, which is very traditional, Japanese in supply chain management. Let's pin that at one end of the spectrum. I've also worked at a Y Combinator, which is a Silicon Valley-based startup here in Japan as a country manager. The other side, all the fun things of Silicon Valley, the chaos, the constant pivots. I think we were at like a pivot a quarter kind of schedule and cadence is quite crazy. As well as now, I'm right back in the middle. Literally half Silicon Valley, half Japan Inc. And really happy to be part of Rakuten's family at this point. So happy to kind of dive further into the discussion as we move forward.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. So I have a lot of questions for you, actually. But first of all, talking about open innovation, so I'd like to ask you guys, like especially first you, Rupinder, how was the experience with Rakuten Accelerator?
The accelerator was intense. Even though the program lasted only 3 months, it lasted more than 3 months. It was around 12 months. So we started Rakuten Accelerator with a vision to share some of our innovation responsibility with external startups. We wanted to share some of our burden with companies like Ant Global. So we launched the accelerator in December of 2017. And overall, we had a very sort of segmented process. We received applications from all over the world. The selection process lasted about 6 months. We had a very intense due diligence process. And after the due diligence process, which lasted around 6 months, we selected 10 startups to participate in a 3-month accelerator, which was hosted in Singapore. During the course of the accelerator, the startups engaged actively with Rakuten people. That was one of the motives of the accelerator, to infuse some of the startup spirit into Rakuten. We wanted to ensure that mentors and Rakuten senior level executives get a vibe of how agile and lean the startups are. And that was one of the goals. So during the first month, we engaged the startups with Rakuten people a lot. And during the second month, the startups got back to the drawing tables and started focusing more on scaling the businesses and reach to the next level. They learned a lot from the mentor engagements, and now was the time to sort of execute on those learnings. At the end, in the last month of the program, they were more focused on refining the pitches and make a final sort of request for more funding to external investors. Of course, we as Rakuten also invested some part in the startups. But the demo day, which is the conclusion of the program, is at the end of the program, and it sort of concludes the program and gives the opportunity to startups to make a final pitch and reach out to more people, seek out more partnerships, and more funding as well. Also from the accelerator, the startups got POC opportunities, proof of concept opportunities, which are business engagement opportunities with Rakuten. So for example, Ant Global had an opportunity to collaborate with Viber, one of our messaging services. Grant from Rakuten Games had an opportunity to collaborate with Groovy Android, which was a gaming startup that we had in the program. So overall, from the accelerator, we saw the impact that we wanted to see, and we saw the engagement. It was a very intense process. And overall, we were very excited about the startups coming into the ecosystem 10 startups at the same time. Of course, it's a bit of a challenge to manage 10 startups at the same
Yeah.
time. But overall, I think we got the level of engagement that we wanted, got the level of excitement inside the company that we wanted.
Great.
There was a lot of positive feedback from the Rakuten mentors that they never had such an experience to sort of see so many new ideas at the same time, getting so many new ideas to work with in their normal day jobs. So overall, it was, I think, a win-win situation for both the startups and Rakuten businesses.
Nice, nice. So that was from the Rakuten point of view. Like, I would like to also hear from Hoso that how was your experience with the Rakuten Accelerator?
Yeah, the whole program was, as Rupin said, actually it was quite intense, but it was very valuable for us. In terms of the intense, let me give you one example. The first week of the program, we had 20 meetings in 3 days, and we met the various people from the Rakuten. And actually, every single person was middle to top level of the management. And actually, that was a really, really huge opportunity for us. But what I felt is that maybe there could be hundreds and thousands of people who want to meet them, or maybe who want to get an appointment with them. So we saved so much time, so much cost, so much effort. I felt like that it's some kind of fast pass ticket, and we really love it. And from the second point, the valuable part is that, yeah, as he said, actually we completed POC with the Viber. All of you are familiar with the Viber, one of the world's largest and the most successful instant messenger platform, part of the Rakuten family. And now, actually, a few days ago, all Viber users in Mongolia now have an access to our basic financial services right on their Viber platform. Actually, this is a fantastic, and we are very lucky to have begun this relationship with the Viber. And the amazing part is that the Viber has a fantastic platform across the Myanmar and the Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries, which are all of countries exactly we are rapidly expanding into. So this is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear that. Okay, and there might be a lot of people here who might be not aware of what open innovation is basically. So it's quite generic term. So can you just explain in brief what exactly is open innovation? Maybe why we do it?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, Rakuten Accelerator is under the umbrella of open innovation. Open innovation means the purposeful exchange of knowledge with external parties. This is a bit different from venture capital, which engages with startups purely from a financial perspective. The key success factor is IRR, a financial return. But in open innovation, we seek something more than the financial return. We seek business value. We seek alignment of mission. Of course, there is a financial aspect and a part of the accelerator as well. But when we talk about open innovation, we usually talk about business synergies. So for example, something that would have taken us a year to develop, and as a part of opening up our organization to external parties, we sort of get more ideas, we are able to move faster, and there are many advantages to open innovation. So in summary, open innovation is simply an exchange of value and knowledge with external companies. It could be licensing out our patents to somebody else. That also counts as open innovation. You asked why should we do it? I think there are three big reasons why any company should heavily invest in open innovation. Number one, it gets access to new products and services which normally you would not have access to. So for example, during the accelerator, we had 3 companies which had either an exclusive patent or a proprietary technology which we could not have gotten access to if it were not for the accelerator. So from the Open Innovation Initiative, we got access to 3 very unique technologies which would not be accessible to us. Secondly, it helps to drastically reduce our time to market for some very specialized things. For example, and global again, the money transfer tool that you made would have could have taken Viber a lot more time rather than just 2 months in which Ant Global executed right from the beginning of the accelerator to launch 3 days ago. So it drastically helps us reduce our time to market for some technologies which we normally would take a lot of time to do, or any big company because of their processes, and we have a lot of processes in Rakuten. We are a very streamlined company, but a startup generally is more lean, and we sort of try to engage the two to reduce the time to market for new features. So that is another advantage which big companies should see out of the open innovation initiatives. And lastly, I think it's also about the culture. As a culture, we should be more open to sort of having new people join and new ideas. And open innovation, this Rakuten Accelerator was the first time Rakuten did something open innovation related. So it was a very big step and achievement for us. So from this program, we learned to bring in new ideas, how to assimilate new ideas inside the company. It was a big step for us in terms of a cultural change to start accepting new ideas, startups, and getting used to having third parties involved to accelerate our own businesses and not just the startups, but we also accelerated ourselves. So I think many reasons to invest heavily in open innovation.
So I could quickly just echo a few things you guys had brought up in the past 2 questions. You'd mentioned a lot about ideas, and I sat on the mentor side of the program, and I was working closely with one of the game companies out of 10 companies that were selected, and to your point about the chaos, there's almost like a speed dating round of pitches. So these are basically each company presenting their core ideas to the various stakeholders at Rakuten. And it was amazing to see how much those ideas transformed and solidified over that 3-month period. I mean, when you time box it, it's amazing how much you can get done in a short amount of time. The Silicon Valley word for that is usually hustle. Everyone has their own way to describe it. And I do think for at least from my perspective, when I saw the companies coming out of that 3 months, the ideas were battle hardened and had gone through so many pitch iterations, not just like the PowerPoint itself, but the team's fundamental belief in the core idea that they were trying to solve just seemed way more concise and more compact after the end of that 3 months. And it was very interesting to see not only all those 10 companies are coming in from like various stages, so they're at different stages of their startup growth, but they were coming from completely different verticals. And I've been working in the games industry for more than 15 years, so it's very refreshing to hear about real estate or payment solutions. And this is not usually a field I'm familiar with. But there was a lot of like core narratives around tech that we could learn from as well from each of these startups. Like these are great ideas, and actually it turned from a mentor relationship to more actually these are business partners in the future. And I wanted to keep on to some of these relationships as well after the program's done. So.
Absolutely.
I think one of the additional things which sort of comes back to the value aspect of open innovation is that it's a mindset shift from a purely financial perspective to a more synergy perspective. As I mentioned, it is something more than we are expecting out of an engagement, an alliance. We are essentially seeking a complementary partner to join our journey, and we should all gain mutually and not just a financial return or an IRR perspective. So it is more of a mission alignment. We want to walk a path together. So open innovation helps you move beyond a financial return and helps you achieve your mission and the startup's mission in a much faster and a much more efficient way.
Right. Awesome. And then, Grant, I have a question for you. You mentioned about the joint venture between Games Closure and Rakuten. So apart from outside this special initiative, like other than that, how did your company get benefited having this, this collaboration with Rakuten? And also, what opportunities did you have working with other startups through Rakuten?
Right. So, I mean, the easiest one to talk about is we really lucked out, with Groovy Antoid. So they, as we mentioned, they were one of the 10 startups from that program. And we'd helped kind of vet the selection process, so we were aware of them when they came in. And just for context, Groovy Antoid is a company based out of Lebanon. They've got a 5-team staff. They make games focused around characters. The art is very beautiful, and they really understand this core gameplay mechanic that's not really talked about in the games industry, which is fun. And we knew they had a good sense of taking core ideas and then turning them into gameplay. They're very good at. I believe hackathons or gameathons was part of the original pitch. They, even in their short 2-year period, they'd already produced 10, POCs. It was really impressive. So we lucked out because it was a very good match in that, us on the, HTML5 platform/services side, we're always looking for content. And it was a no-brainer. They make great content. We can provide APIs to help them expand their audience, find new ways to engage within our core kind of ecosystem. So it was just a natural fit. And what I was really impressed with was just the speed at which they worked, and not only time boxing a 3-month period for the program itself, but that we set time. They actually came to our office here for a 2-week period and pumped out a POC faster than our team had done over a year. I was just almost very jealous of that hustle, and it was just a nice reminder of what it takes to stay afloat. We're hopefully getting that POC out the door and turning that into a product in the near future. So from our perspective, we've got great content and great connections, and again, there's shared outside of just games. There's shared APIs that we can also work with partners moving forward outside the game space as well.
Awesome. All right. And Hoso, I have a question for you actually. As a partner or as a startup, what did you feel about working with a big company like Rakuten?
Rakuten,
Yeah.
In a nutshell, actually, it was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me talk about the 3 points. And the perspective of the business side, all of you know that Rakuten is a huge corporation which has more than 70 in the business line. And so how can I explain it? Maybe this is not a good expression, but it's like an adventure. Of course, we did our homework. So what kind of Rakuten business Rakuten does, and also what kind of business line do they have. We actually did our homework very well, but even we did, during our meeting, Mentor Madness, we recognized that maybe there could be a more opportunity with the more business lines. Actually, so it's like an adventure to looking for a new collaboration between, maybe in a different area, maybe in a different business area. So that was a really fantastic one. And also from the perspective of the people, that every single person was so well experienced and very professional, and they are really eager to help us and also really eager to support us, and they really well connected and really help to connect with other people, even in not the people from the Rakuten, other side of the Rakuten, they connected us. Actually, that was so nice, and we really appreciated it. And from the third point, actually, I have experience of working in a big Japanese company, big Japanese bank. But compared to those companies, the Rakuten is move faster and think faster and organize faster. So it's quite different. It's more like a startup culture. Actually, we really wondered that, surprised that, but actually it was so nice to work with together.
Well,
So can I add one quick comment about the adventure bit? So I think another way to look at that as well, most big companies, especially the caliber of up to 75 group companies and subsidiaries, generally there's no centralized team that looks at holistic solutions that company can provide. And I found it, through the program, it was almost it turned into that in a way, because to your point about getting everyone's meeting times, like getting everyone in the same spot for that 1 week period during Mentor Madness, it almost turned into that core function of introducing every sort of service that Rakuten could provide, all within that short kind of speed, like flash burst. So I think probably from the Rakuten side too, it was I was learning a lot about the other services during that, from our perspective as well, just because it was so synthesized, and you could, ideally, not just you guys having a sense of adventure and reaching out for those opportunities, but generally big companies need to also actively be looking for ways they can provide holistic solutions, align KPIs, and make sure that they can provide the most support from all the angles they can provide to these companies.
Right.
Another comment on that. So Hoso mentioned that during the Mentor Madness, he got to know about many more businesses that he actually had sort of knew before the program. So there, I can recall 3 instances where we did not expect a POC, but that sort of came out. Retarget Links is one of the examples. They sort of made, so Retarget Links is another startup that was a part of the accelerator. It's they actually have a patent for a very unique advertising technology, which they are monetizing heavily. So they came in with a particular idea in mind, but when they got to know more about the Rakuten group, they came with a absolutely different pitch at the demo day, which was very, very, I mean, they got a very good response from the VCs that were in the room. So sometimes we don't know what open innovation can lead to. I mean, the point is to just make that amalgamation happen, just give those opportunities to people, see, let it flow and see where it goes. And that was a case where, we did not know what to expect, but something came out of it.
Absolutely. And Jose, you touched upon the services you're actually providing in Mongolia. So I would like to hear more about it. Like, what are your future plans? What are your ambitions? What are you planning to do?
Our future.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we are tying up with Viber at the moment. And tying up with the messenger platform like a Viber, which has a dominant presence in the Southeast Asian countries, gives us a great speed. But actually, even this speed is not sufficient for us. Actually, we need to go faster, actually.
Speed.
Yeah, it's speed, actually. And let me explain how. And so there are legacy banks all across the Southeast Asia, in small towns, communities, everywhere. And these banks have strong brands that people trust. But what these banks don't have is technology. And they don't know how to lend to the borrowers who have no credit scores or no collateral. And they don't know how to offer other parts of the financial inclusion. But actually, we do. We believe that we do. So what we are doing, what we intend to doing is that we would like to teaming up with these banks to address the people around those banks and those communities. And tying up with these banks and the financial institutions, we will go by community and country by country. So our intention is to spread financial inclusion platform, which is to be delivered as a platform as a service model.
Awesome.
So this is what we would like to do in the near future. And actually, we have a quite ambitious goal. One of our goal, that is doing IPO on the NASDAQ by the end of 2020, at least evaluation with the unicorn.
Good luck with that. Like, wish you all the
Quite
best.
close, by the way.
Quite close. Only in 2 years. But
Right.
actually, yeah, we believe that we can do that.
Yeah, and Global is one of the most stellar companies that we have in the accelerator, much more advanced and much more later stage than they already have an IPO. I'm not sure if people know that, but you already have an IPO in Mongolia. It's not exactly a startup, but they're an established company which chose us to be a part of their journey. And that's
Actually,
what we're very
our mindset is always startup. Yeah,
always, okay.
always.
So just a quick question. When you talk about speeding things up, how do you generally do that? Like, is it reduce paperwork, or how do you speed up those decisions? Like, what if you could focus on something to speed up? Is there something like internally you would want to make that change?
Change? Maybe less paperwork. And actually, we have meetings in everywhere, not only in a meeting room, and everywhere, literally. Maybe in a road, or maybe in outside, maybe in close to the toilet, everywhere. So that's when we have an idea, just talk it and share it, and let's discuss it, and then decide it. And that's actually our advantage to being as a startup. And it's one one of our great advantages is speed, we think, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Actually, we have to.
Okay, so that's your secret sauce. Okay.
I have a question for Grant. Working with Groovy Android was like, I'm guessing a new experience for you. How did you learn anything as an established business inside Rakuten, or like representing Rakuten as an entity? Did you learn anything new about working with a startup? Like, is it culturally or technologically something that you would like to share?
So what was amazing with them as well, and I'm going to just do my best job to praise them throughout this whole thing, because it's part of my job as well. So to add some context to that, with the POC, they actually were tackling a new technology. So we had asked them to switch over to HTML5 from C# and building in a middleware called Unity. And they took on, I asked them, is this going to be an issue? Is there any technical debt? And they said, no, we'll figure it out. And the CEO himself has a background in code, so he said, if these guys can't cover it, I got it. And basically, what my big takeaway from that was every roadblock, they just completely got out of the way within X hours. It was incredible. So there was no excuses. They knew they had to get something done, and they did whatever it took to get it out the door in that amount of time. I think we had our team at Rakuten Games is quite diverse. We've got we still haven't figured out our official main language. We have a lot of Chinese speakers. We've got a lot of Japanese speakers. We have a lot of English speakers, Spanish speakers as well. And it was quite interesting because the artist at Groovy Android actually speaks Chinese, so that sped up the onboarding process for the tech bit way faster. And we got everyone got up to speed with the tools, and that was a nice breakthrough discovery. He's just sitting there and he's like, wait a second, I know exactly what you guys are talking about, and just sped that whole thing up. But I think it's a nice reminder of just the mindset you need, and not waiting till next week or oh well, it's Friday, let's not ship. And these guys were just, no, it's Saturday, let's ship. And just if it breaks, it breaks. But we want, we said we're going to do this, we're going to commit to that delivery date. It's not something every big company can do. Obviously, there's security risks, but I think, especially in the games industry, it's a nice thing you can still experiment with and work at that speed. So again, just for us, it was the reminder about what you can do in a small amount of time.
Awesome. Okay. And talking about speed and working culture, especially Rupin and Grant, you guys have worked with big companies, small companies. So what do you think big companies and small companies can do when they work together to align with each other better than because basically the culture is different. The way the startup has a different culture, that's why they are able to move faster than a big company. So what do you think they can do to align with each other?
So I think there are two key things that I can sort of highlight. One is the value of timing and flexibility, timing and flexibility somewhere combined. I think if both the startup and the big company have a perspective of the timelines that they're looking at, being flexible on both the ends, I think that works really well for both, because in some of the cases during the accelerator, we thought that the mission is aligned, but the timing of the features or the synergies were sort of not really aligned. So that was one of the challenges that we faced during the accelerator, was the timing of execution of a synergy. So that is something which I think the big company can work out better. Second thing is the value of prototyping early. I think because the startup and the big company are sort of thinking of a new idea, it's very important to keep things on the table very early and sort of show something, what exactly is the synergy that they're seeking, to ensure that everybody's on the same page very early. So I think whenever a big company works with a startup, I think they should emphasize the value. Not even if they're working with a startup, even internally, everybody in general should emphasize the value of having a prototype early, because that sort of clarifies a lot of things earlier in the process and helps remove some of the creases in the process, because there were some instances where there was a sort of disalignment with the scope of the POC or something like that. So I think moving on, we want to ensure that big company and a startup agree on a POC very, very early on in the process, so that things go much faster and in a much more efficient way. There's less churn.
Yeah, I think everything you just said. Just to add some comments to that as well. Starting from the POC part, I think there's a general sense in a lot of companies, not just Rakuten, stop showing PowerPoints, start showing demos is a very, I think, common trend now. Generally, you can get a lot more sense of what the product and service can do, even if, you don't need a fully running, onboarded product, but you can have even just, wireframes that, you can click through on a PowerPoint to get you to show what the end product would look like. And that gets people, it speeds up the process of people understanding what you're trying to build. So I think alignment there is absolutely key. Get something you can demo, even if it's not a real demo. I'm not saying trick people, but generally it helps people identify what you're actually building. And leave kind of the PowerPoints to pitching and explaining the problem you're trying to solve, and then move to an actual something you can hand someone and say, this is what we're trying to build, what do you think? And that's when ideas just start popping off. It's like, well, actually, what if you did this and this? And it just helps facilitate that conversation so much better. And then going back to your first point, alignment overall, I think most startups have that core idea that they were focusing on and just thinking day in, day out, how do they solve that? And they'll do whatever it takes to solve that problem. Generally, if you're lucky enough to get far enough at a stage when you have some sort of North Star kind of KPI, it's key to explain that to the bigger company you're working with, because if you don't align on that point, it won't align at any point. And maybe it's a timing to your point earlier, but I think having an open conversation from the start about what each side expects from the partnership, what are the things that you can do and offer to each other, and here's the KPI that we think about day in, day out. Can you help us solve this or achieve this? And I think just having that candid conversation from the start allows you to utilize the time box. To reiterate that one more time, though, just because the 3-month program's over doesn't mean this is like the end of the partnership. So we still work with Groovy. You're in our office all the time. So I think it's definitely the start of partnerships, not just from investment standpoint, but those should proceed after the program's done.
Yeah. So one of the messages that I keep on delivering to startups, that Accelerator is not the end of the journey. The doors are always open. It's an engagement. It's a family thing. Like, we want to continue the relationship with all the startups that we have been involved with. So no doors have been closed just because you have a demo day and receive follow-on funding. So that's a good point, that we continue to engage with the startups even after the Accelerator program.
Awesome.
I mean, if you came back with a demo of a problem that you heard during those Mentor Madness sessions, you could start up a whole new business just by like repitching that once, after what problem the bigger company's trying to solve as well, right?
Right. And talking of Accelerator, I think a lot of people here might be interested to know how they can, or anyone can be involved with Accelerator or open innovation with Rakuten. So can you throw some light on that?
Sure. So there are two groups of people that I would like to address here. One is the startups. If you are working for a startup, or if you are CEO of a startup, we are always looking to collaborate with external parties to help accelerate us. And Rakuten has around 70 plus businesses which are waiting to collaborate with you. So if you have an idea that you would need Rakuten's resources on, if there is something that Rakuten can help you with, please feel free to reach out to me or to any of us. We're more than happy to listen to the opportunity that we can work on. And for Rakuten employees, I think if you're interested in working with startups, if you believe in the idea of accelerating us with the help of external ideas, if you're excited about bringing new innovation, new ideas, new startups inside the Rakuten ecosystem, again, please feel free to say hi and let me know. I'll be definitely looking forward to working with all of you.
All right. So I guess that's all.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for attending the session, and hopefully we can have a conversation soon.
Yeah, that's all the time we have for today. So thanks for attending this panel discussion. I hope
Thank you
enjoyed
very
it.
much.
Thank you.